Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective. Hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and the Sharks do still have goaltending, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening, fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. I didn't have it written in here, but Happy New Year, Dom.
Happy New Year, Corey, and Happy New Year to everyone listening. And our apologies for the delay in getting the episode to you. It is entirely my fault from scheduling.
Dom is a big liar. There was scheduling conflicts on both ends. There's been a lot going on, and unfortunately, life and family do take priority over hockey and podcasting as much as we love bringing this to you all every week. But we'll get back on track to our normally scheduled programming this week. You'll probably be getting a doubleheader this week with our episodes, and, you know, that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with more hockey content in any given week. Don't you think so, Dom?
Oh, I agree. There's always more than enough hockey content for the two of us to fill 2 hours of time, and that's really just focused on majority of it's on two teams. So there's always more hockey content with our teams that we want to share, as well as just from around the league.
Exactly right. Well, may your new year, Dom, be filled with frugalness, financial success, happiness, and, of course, plenty of hockey watching.
And yours too, good sir. Good captain. Take us away. What direction are we heading tonight?
I'm trying to think of who I don't want to wish a happy new year to. Which fan base I don't want to wish a happy new year to.
Well, naturally, there's the Kraken and the Golden Knights for both of us to cover our bases there. Maybe not to the fan base, but to the front office of the Rangers, you cannot wish a happy new year to.
Yeah, and I'll also go with the front office of the Buffalo Sabres, but I have more to say about that later. Well,
I know you do.
Yeah. Well, you would have thought that the most exciting game for the Avalanche this week would have been against the best team in the league in the leading Winnipeg Jets. But that was far from the case, as the Buffalo Sabres once again gave every Avs fan, including myself, heart palpitations. The San Jose Sharks have also found their new Mackenzie Blackwood, as Askarov has quickly stolen the show and likely the starting job in the tank. But before we get into any of that, it's a new year, and a new year means new power rankings, and Dom has kindly assembled a list of teams we love, we hate, we ignore, and are enamored by. So let's all happily agree or violently disagree with everything Dom says. It's time for some New Year's power rankings. That's your cue, Dom. Time for power rankings.
Oh, I was muted there. That is a big flub on my end. Want. I was just saying thank you, Corey, for that introduction. I fumbled it away there.
They'll never have to know. They'll never have to know.
The New Year's power rankings, as promised, we last did this around Thanksgiving, and we said we would target the Christmas break as a time for a power rankings. I've gone ahead and made these as of the day we are recording today. So as of this afternoon, January 5th, this is how I see the state of the NHL. And one thing you said, Corey, is just can't be bothered to watch. And coming in at number 32, it is the Chicago Blackhawks. I can't be bothered to have much to say other than Bedard does not a team make. While Celebrini is shining in his rookie season, Bedard is struggling through his sophomore slump right now. And again, it's not necessarily his fault. It's just a really bad team around him. So that is your worst team in the NHL at number 32. Number 31, Corey, I'm going to cut to you here. Can you guess who is the number 31 ranked team in the NHL?
The Nashville Predators.
You know, that's a good guess, and I'm just going to say right now, they're number 30. No, at 31 in my power rankings, I have the worst of the East, the Buffalo Sabres. So I would like to give you the opportunity here to speak about the Buffalo Sabres, because I know you have a lot more to say on this topic than I do.
I will keep it very brief, because I have a whole thing coming up a little later. The Buffalo Sabres are so severely broken. They could have one of the best teams in the league right now, but they don't. And they could have the best team with the roster that they have. I was thinking about the roster that they have given up. But even with the roster that they have, they could be competing, and they're just not. Their front office is failing them. The people on the ice are suffering. The losing culture is just the norm. The fans don't deserve it.
Yeah, for everyone who doesn't know better, other than the stretch of Christmas week from the 23rd to the 29th, when they won 3 consecutive games, the Buffalo Sabres have not won a game other than that trio going back to November 23rd.
Yes.
So it has been a consistent string of losses for the majority of December and as we start here in the new year, which I know Corey will speak to more later. To keep moving along on the power rankings, because we do have a lot of content to bring to you, I already said the Nashville Predators are at 39, and for all of my faithful Teal followers, our San Jose Sharks have landed in 29th on this power ranking, so they have fallen one slot from where they were previously at 28th at Thanksgiving. And listen, it is great, and I'm going to talk plenty about how amazing Askarov has been in net. He clearly has been the Blackwood replacement and is coming into his own, perhaps ahead of schedule. That is by no means a bad thing because it is going to be right on schedule with Celebrini and Will Smith's development, so this team could be turning the corner a lot sooner than we expected, and so that is good news for the future. However, the Sharks did finish the year losing 8 straight games, so that is something that we do have to take into account here. They've started 2025 well. I will speak to that more later, but they finished 2024 on 8 consecutive losses, and if we are talking where people are at in the NHL since Thanksgiving and factoring in their whole body of work on the season, I can't move the Sharks higher than 29th at this point in time for this season at least. Corey, anything to add to talk up my Sharks, give me some reason to move them up?
I mean, unfortunately, I really can't give you a reason to move them up any higher than they are. I think you're right on the money there, but you are right that there is cause for optimism. Despite a low ranking right now, you look at the Blackhawks, who should have taken a logical step forward, but have instead taken 2 steps back. But you look at the Sharks, who, despite losing hockey games right now, are absolutely trending in the right direction with things on both the front and back ends and with a strong management supporting them. So I think you're right. I don't think it'll be the case for too many more years here that you'll be ranking your boys so low.
Yeah, and hopefully as soon as next year, there's that possibility, I wonder, especially if we still can capitalize on a top pick this year, get Dickinson in to support Mook Madulin. We just got Vlasic back. This team is starting to come together in a good way. If we can get extensions for Zetterlund and or Granlund and shore up our future, this is a team I'm happy to support and rally behind for the years to come here. But anyway, moving right along at 28, I have the New York Islanders, and quite honestly, like Buffalo, they have done nothing to impress. All the New York teams are consecutive in a row at the bottom of the entire East as it stands right now. You have the Rangers, Islanders, and Sabres bringing up the rear for that entire conference. It is not pretty in New York right now. And the Rangers, Corey, fallen all the way 17 spots since Thanksgiving when I had them obviously at this point too high ranked at 10, but they are down at 27 now. Do we have any spare thoughts for the Rangers? Because I did not collect any notes for them this week.
Frankly, I could argue you could rank them even lower. I mean, this team has just crumbled. Yeah, they win a few games here and there. They beat, who did they just beat the other day? They just won today. They beat the Blackhawks today. I was watching that game, but you beat the Blackhawks. Congratulations. Obviously, I always say, you need to be winning these kind of games, but that's if you're a contender. At this point, I hate to say that the New York Rangers are just straight frauds at this point, and that's the case. And, they got their ass kicked by the Washington Capitals in a game that they started off competitive in and then just fell off the wheels fell off the bus pretty quickly. And now that Igor Shesterkin is injured, not that Jonathan Quick can't still get it done, but with the team around him, even Igor was struggling. So I genuinely see no hope for this team for the rest of the season. And I could be wrong. I could be speaking too soon, but I mean, we're now at the halfway point. We are officially at the halfway point. And unless they have some sort of miracle turnaround, 2019 St. Louis Blues style, it's not coming back. They're missing it. They're missing the show here.
They are, and they are at 37 points at the bottom of the East. And yes, the East is tight, and right now 40 points gets you a wild card. That's only 3 points away, you might say, but it
With
is
the
just
teams
how the
ahead of
Rangers
them,
look
no
out
way.
there.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The teams ahead of them, that is what we're paying attention to here. And in that vein, we will keep moving along. At 26, this was a hard one for me to rank. I have the Philadelphia Flyers. And what's hard is the lack of consistency because Matvei Michkov has been great. Konechny's having a great year. They have some consistency. They have these flashes of success. They absolutely just pounced on the Sharks 4-0 during this stuff I'm going to cover tonight. So, they have games that they're doing the right things, and then they have games where their goaltending doesn't show up, where they just can't seem to get any offense. They're just a hard team to place. They're right there in that hunt in the East because everybody is. But otherwise, they're at number 7 at the wild card, and only 2 teams make it. So the tiebreakers, the things are not falling in their favor right now. And again, with the teams in front of them, I don't know if they can really make a playoff push. They'd have to clean up some of the issues in Philly. Anything to add there, Corey?
I'd like to make a comparison for Matvei Michkov and Macklin Celebrini, but I will save that for when we're in the tank.
Alrighty, we can certainly bounce back to that one. At 25, a team I believe can also contend for the playoffs. Tied on points, record, everything with Philadelphia is Detroit. I think it's fitting to have the Red Wings here ranked with the Flyers. That's the perfect example of if you tell me for the second half of the season which team has a better shot at making the playoffs, I would just give the slight edge to the Red Wings. I was higher on the Red Wings coming into the season. And so it's for that reason teams like the Flyers might get caught behind. At 24, I have the Anaheim Ducks, and this is a team that is slept on right now. They are not like a playoff caliber contending team by any means, but they've slowly but surely climbed back into it. They're at 36 points, just 1 point behind Seattle, who has been nipping at the heels of Utah, St. Louis, Calgary. It is very competitive, and it's going to take a lot of wins to succeed out in the West this year and to make the wild card. I know we've talked about it with the Avs, but there are no guarantees.
No.
It is just a very, very strong conference this year. The Western Conference is the better conference this year. I don't know if we've said that recently in recent years necessarily, but it is hands down the better conference this year. So the fact that Anaheim is surging some and are nearly at 500, 36 points in 38 games, so nearly at NHL 500. This is a team that I don't think people are giving enough credit to. They are also rebuilding. They have a lot of talent. They have Dostal, like I know we've talked about. So this Ducks team, I think, is definitely a team that even more so than the Sharks is one to keep watching. I don't think they can necessarily make the playoffs this year, but I would consider them playoff contenders if we were starting a preseason power ranking for the next year. So that's looking far ahead, I know, but I just don't be sleeping on the Ducks. They're making their come up, and they will be back in the hunt here soon. At 23, your favorite, Corey, the Seattle Kraken. I don't think there's much that needs to be said there other than they fell 3 spots from their previous ranking.
Good. Let's keep that downfall going. Yeah.
Yeah, they other than, I mean, right now, by the way, I never said it, but the Rangers fell 17 spots and the Sabres falling 12 are our biggest fallers on the rankings. At number 22, staying and not actually moving since Thanksgiving, it is Columbus, and they are just right there in the middle of this Eastern battle. They are tied with Ottawa on points for the last wildcard spot. They are losing on the tiebreakers technically right now, but they are still right there in the thick of it in the hunt with Pittsburgh, with Ottawa. This is a team that, like I said, it's just interesting to watch how they'll be able to play to their opponent maybe and win some games against teams that you wouldn't expect. So Columbus still a dark horse for the playoffs, but I have them on the outside looking in. Right in front of them, I just mentioned them, but the Pittsburgh Penguins. Schittsburg moving up 11 spots because they are no longer playing like Schittsburg. So I will henceforth stop calling them that. Sorry, Sidney Crosby, I have offended you. I guess the trade deadline move to Colorado is not looking so likely at this point.
Dude, it's tragic because, yeah, you're right. They're playing much better now. They just lost a close one to Carolina in OT today. But, I mean, they're now knocking on the doorstep to go into the playoffs, which in a weird way, like, bums me out. Like, yeah, I want Sidney Crosby to, of course, have another crack at it. But, like, I wanted them to suck enough to where Kyle Dubas was like, fine, we got to tear it all down. Here you go, Avs. Here's Sidney Crosby. It's not going to happen now that they're in contention. Boo! Boo, I say!
Boo! Let's see. Next up, right ahead of Pittsburgh at the 20th spot, I have the Montreal Canadiens, and I know they technically have a point less, but they're still at NHL 500 as well, with 18 wins, 18 losses, and 3 OT losses. And they're right there in the thick of it. I think this Montreal team is better. I think they have better goaltending. I think they are a young core that is dynamic. So I would give them an advantage against some of those teams such as Columbus when we get into that final playoff spot hunting in the East. So that's the Canadiens are a team to watch at number 20, and we might see them move up more on the next power rankings. I had been extremely low on them, and so they also move up 11 spots. So tied with the Penguins for the biggest positive movers. Anything to say about those bottom 12, Corey, before I keep moving along?
I think just with some of these teams, yeah, you see them moving up or down, but there are still things, I think, on the back end that are playing to their detriment, which is what keeps them from pushing themselves over the hump. For example, Montreal. Yes, they're hot right now, but I feel like they're one of those teams that can get cold just as quickly. And the reason that they're hot is because they have a lot of really good youthful talent, but it also seems like some things in their back end, in their systems, aren't working the way that they would like them to. So I can't necessarily fault you for not riding high on them to start. I just think teams like that, excuse me, have some more stepping to do. And that can be said for quite a few of those teams. For example, Columbus. Columbus is a great one, and I really hope that they manage to sneak in there. Columbus's problem right now is they're awful on the road. They are right. Home kings. They can win at home, but I think their record on the road, I think they only have 4 wins on the road the entire year, which is, you're never going to get anywhere if you can't win on the road, especially if you make it to the playoffs. You have to be able to win. So there are just, while these things may seem small, it can cascade into a much bigger consequence for teams like that, which is why they're in the position that they're in your power rank.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why they're at the 20 and above mark, and that does mean they're on the outside looking in, and that is the quality that we're talking about with the East this year. Is they have some high highs, but the capacity for going just as cold on their lows is why I have to rank them here, and that's also why I think it's a nice transition to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, who are cold right now. And yes, they've won a couple recently. They did win against the Sharks, but it's I don't know. It's not a team that's giving me a lot of faith. They are in the wild card right now in the last spot, I believe, in the West, but Calgary is a point behind. St. Louis is 2 points behind. Utah is 3 behind. These teams are surging and right now feel like they're playing better. And they don't have the cloud of like waiting to see, is Brock Besser going to get an extension? Or what are they going to do with what is Quinn Hughes going to return and give them that jump or not because of his injury? So there are some concerns as it relates to Vancouver. I feel there's just been a bit of a slide there, and so they slide down the rankings. When you lose and get shut out by Nashville, get blanked at home by Nashville to start the new year after a close win in Seattle, I'm not convinced, because then at the end of the last year, their only win in the second half of December was versus San Jose. Otherwise, it was loss at Utah, loss at Vegas, loss versus Ottawa, loss versus Seattle, loss at Calgary to finish out the year. So this Vancouver team, while in the playoffs and still very dangerous at their best, I think they're in the exact same position that we talk about with Montreal, Pittsburgh, Columbus right now.
Yeah, and I mean, they just have a media firestorm surrounding them at the moment, regardless of what's actually going on behind closed doors, because we don't actually know. And I don't want to necessarily buy into the media zeitgeist that they're trying to push with like JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. But clearly there is some tension going on in some form of another that's not helping them. I can already tell that you have then, if Vancouver is here, Utah is ranked again or ranked above Vancouver, and that's actually where I disagree. I think Utah is showing a lot of flashes of Arizona where they got really hot and now they're just falling off a cliff again. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Utah fall pretty hard outside of the playoff window here in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I also wouldn't be surprised if you see them surge and win a few games. But Utah has now all of a sudden been losing a lot after getting pretty hot. So I don't know if I'd necessarily rank Vancouver below Utah, but you do make a compelling argument with their losses here. Although I did mean to say before, also completely unrelated to either of the teams, well, kind of, that the West, I'm really curious to see how the West wild card is going to end up shaping up. It's a dogfight at the
It is a dogfight indeed, and a very exciting one, and that's why we're going to see a string of West teams here. And you're right about Utah. I think they are a streaky team. I think they always have been, but they're a team going into this season. I feel like we both were high on. We wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think I trust their upside more than Vancouver's. As it stands right now, I don't think either of those teams makes the playoffs in my rankings. So I think they both are losers along with the Blues, and it's Calgary who gets in personally. That's how I have it as of today, these power rankings. But you are correct. I mean, they are ahead of the Hockey Club on points. So really quickly, I have the St. Louis Blues at 18, just in front of the Canucks. I feel like they are just more consistent, more competitive
Jim Montgomery
in their
effect.
wins. Yeah, in their wins and their losses. So I think that makes them, when you can play that way at home on the road, it makes you have that feel more of a playoff team where you can win on your nights. And everybody's good, so it does have to be your night in some sense, and you have to show up. 17, I have the Ottawa Senators. They are currently sitting in that last Eastern spot. I think they have the inside track on that. But again, being ranked closely to those teams like the Canadiens, Penguins, Jackets, just as how the Canucks, Blues, and at 16, the Utah Hockey Club are ranked. So technically the Senators at 17 are the last playoff team in right now. Hockey Club, I have personally ranked at 16, just again because I think of their upside. But you're correct. They are in a similar boat as the Canucks and maybe should have been ranked closer to Vancouver down at 19.
I mean, I could honestly argue that the Senators have a higher upside than the Hockey Club right now because the Senators went on a real good run and then both of their top goaltenders got injured. So, of course, right now they're maybe struggling a little more, but I think they're still remaining fairly competitive in games, whereas Utah has their top goaltending and yet are still dropping games. And Karel Vejmelka was ranked 5th out of all goaltenders, I think last time we talked about it. So, or not ranked 5th, but was 5th out of all goaltenders in terms of GAA. So, I mean, he's playing really well this season, but the team in front of him just isn't delivering. And I frankly choose to believe in Vancouver's upside more, just on the fact that last year they managed to push an Edmonton team that would go all the way to the finals, all the way to 7 games, make it a really close series, and all of that with a third string goaltender. So I feel like right now they're bit by an injury bug. They're bit by some unnecessary drama coming their way. But I mean, Quinn Hughes truly is an amazing game-changing player. It's similar if the Avs lost Cale Makar. So, I mean, you can see the difference in, WAR, wins above replacement. You can't replace a guy like Quinn Hughes. So when he's off the ice, your team's going to struggle, not to mention he's their captain. So I personally believe that the Canucks will rebound once shit gets a little bit settled here. And I do think that the Hockey Club is going to kind of fall off here, as well as I think the Senators will begin to rebound. They've really started to separate themselves from the more mid teams.
Yeah, and I do have them there again, slightly ahead of the more mid teams of the Metro, as you put it. To keep moving along, I do have the Calgary Flames at 15. So, like I said, it's all very competitive here at the bottom end of the playoffs. It's anybody's guess and just my interpretation of right now. My last defense for Utah would just be streaky. Would lose 4, win 4 type of thing. So they won 4, lost 4. 1-1, lost 1. Like, I mean, they could just flip it around here and win 4 in a row. It's really hard to tell based on their pattern of streaking. They don't seem to lose more than like 4 or 5 games in a row. Unlike the Sharks have seen, of course. So that's just my one thing that makes me think they have a couple good games ahead of them. I also know they do play the Sharks here in a game or two. So that gives, that helps a Utah team. Calgary, anyway, though, at 15, last team in the playoffs in my projections, even though that's where Vancouver stands today. I think they're a team that has some solid goaltending and is playing, I think, more consistently than they were earlier in the season. So I'm feeling a bit more comfortable with the Flames than maybe I was thinking I was going to be. At this point in time, I know they've slid down from their hot start, but they've still leveled off in a way similar to how the Jets have and been able to keep pace with the rest of the league. So that's why I have Calgary at 15. At 14, I have the Boston Bruins. Not much to really say here. I think they're that team that's going to make the playoffs, but I'm not thoroughly convinced. I do feel like the championship window for Boston has moved on a bit. I know we've said that before. I don't see the same excitement, the same energy, the same daunting force of Boston. They seem like that team that makes the playoffs but isn't a serious contender right now. At 13, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning, and after thrashing the Sharks 7-1 and showing their playoff contender status, the Sharks got them back this past week. I'm happy to talk about here in a little bit later in the tank. And so they are a fallible team. I think it really what it comes down to is I think there are 13 teams in the league this year that have a chance to truly take the cup, who are truly playoff teams and have some percentage of a chance, like greater than 1%, so it's not like some decimal place percent. And I think Tampa Bay is the last of those 13 teams. So I consider them legitimate playoff team. I just think they are an outside shot right now. They're only 2 points into they're only 2 points ahead in the first wild card spot out east. So they are a team that is vulnerable. Just as Boston is. So that's something that, depending on how the East plays out, it doesn't scare me as much as it used to. But playoff Vasi is unheard of with his being that comes out, who he decides to be in the playoffs is quite remarkable. So it's hard to write them off as a true contender or not. Looking before we go to the final 12, Corey, anything to say for that middle bunch?
Tampa is such an interesting beast to me because I feel like there are teams who are better than they are out east, especially this year. But I mean, you're right. First of all, a team from Florida has made the Stanley Cup Finals for the past 5 years in a row, which is insanity. First of all,
boil the warm state. Why don't they?
Seriously, and they always made fun of them, but look who's laughing now. And they have 3 cups out of those 5 years, mind you. 3 Stanley Cups from those 5 years. But you're right in that Tampa still has an insanely strong roster, even without Steven Stamkos. I mean, thought maybe they wouldn't perform as well without him, but it seems like they haven't lost as much of a stride. I mean, I think you can see some of that age of this team showing. And I'm not necessarily talking about age of the players, but just age of the system. And that maybe now there's different systems that are finally moving past what made them successful. But I mean, this is a team that knows how to win. It still has some of that staff from the cup runs. It still has John Cooper, who is by all means a great coach. So you're right. You can never count out Tampa Bay.
And so, again, I have them at 13, but that's just because I think the top of the NHL is extremely strong this year, and it's hard to rank.
It is.
And at number 12, I have the Dallas Stars. That's a 5-place slide from where I had them previously. I just not wholly convinced by Dallas, and in a far more competitive Western Conference than was expected. The Avs are nipping at their heels, and I don't know.
Or like the Stars are nipping at our heels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's nipping at whose heels. The point is, I think the Avs are going to win out in that thing, and that might be a bit biased from being here in Colorado, but from what I've seen, the Avs scare me more, and that is an easy tiebreaker there. I mean, I have the Avs higher up on the power rankings here than the Stars, so it stands to reason. So that's a little bit of why the Stars are down at 12. Again, a playoff contender. Jake Ottinger is always a force to be reckoned with, but more at the bottom end of the playoff tier than the top right now. At 11, I have the Carolina Hurricanes, and this might be an overreaction, sliding them from 2 all the way to 11. But I think the Capitals look really good. The Devils are still right there, really good. There are other teams in the Metropolitan and the East in general that I trust a little bit more, and overall I am going to rank the West higher. Out of the top 7 spots, 5 of them are going to Western teams.
Damn.
And so that is part of why the Hurricanes slide down to 11. At number 10, I have the Colorado Avalanche, your home team, up 3 spots to the 10 seed, and there is an argument to move them up higher. There are multiple arguments based on the teams ahead of them to move them up higher. And you know what? I think by the end of the season, the Avs will move up higher, but just pure power rankings based on where everyone's at and trying to consider the season as a whole. The fact that Colorado still, as of earlier when I looked, sat in the first wildcard spot, I still jumped them ahead of Dallas.
Until last night, all right? We were third.
Well, I jumped them ahead of Dallas, so I kept them in third, basically. But your third is behind the Pacific third. So that has to be taken into account.
I know. It's dumb. It's fucking division. I hate it, dude. I hate it here.
At number 9, no surprise here. They actually didn't move from the prior rankings. The Florida Panthers in the Atlantic sitting there at number 9. The defending champs are still right in the hunt. Again, a team that's right there with the Canes and with New Jersey, which, hey, guess who? Look at that. New Jersey's sitting at number 8. So these teams at the back end of the top 10 are very much playoff caliber teams. I just trust the West a little bit more overall. There was a part of me that wanted to jump the Avalanche ahead of both the Devils and the Panthers, and then I was like, that's 5 straight Western teams. I need to mix this up just a tiny bit. So that I will admit played to the Avalanche's slide just a tiny bit. I was like, it's close. Who am I gonna take over a 7-game series type of thing? And I did give the edge to Florida just because that fair. Defending Cup champ pedigree, and I mean it's Florida. They're really good.
Even when they're not winning, you just never doubt Florida, to be honest.
Exactly. They have just that heart. Number 7, I have the Edmonton Oilers surging. We know what's going on there. McDavid, you would think, but no, wait, this season it's Draisaitl's year. So that team is just putting up the points like they like to do. And once again, tied, staring down a 2-3 battle for like the 4th or 5th consecutive year. Going neck and neck with them is the Los Angeles Kings, who really do look dangerous this year. They look more dangerous than normal. However, when they inevitably play the Oilers in the first round, they will get bounced yet again. And
Is it the year, Dom?
My hopes of Edmonton falling early will once again be curtailed.
We can only wish.
But for now, I have them ranked ahead of the Oilers. So if they play any team that's not the Oilers, they'll win, I think.
They probably would.
So that's, I can't say the same thing for the Oilers. So that's a tiebreaker. I do think some of these other teams are more likely to beat the Oilers. At number 5, I have the Minnesota Wild. Not much to say here. We know how great the Wild are. So I don't have much to add here. They've really had an incredible start to the season. Fleury is going out with a bang, including stopping Ovechkin to win a game in a shootout this season. So How about that for the old timers?
Poetic.
Number 4, right in front of them, the Winnipeg Jets. And this might sound a little too low, and that's fair. They just started the season really well, and I'm trying to take into account the fact that they have leveled off. They are beatable.
Oh my God, I know who you ranked number 1. What have you done? I already know who you have in number 1 without.
I know, and I hate it.
I already know. I hate it.
I hate it.
Keep going.
Number 3, I have the Capitals. They're for real. Ovi's back now, and I'm going to talk about that when we just say around the NHL. So Washington is a legit cup threat this year. Don't be surprised to see the odds in Vegas start to favor them. Number 2, Toronto. They might, always crash and burn in the playoffs, but as far as the regular season is concerned, in my opinion, whether the points showed or not, I think they're the number 2 team in the NHL right now. Just consistent goaltending, rotating their goaltenders, consistent play in front of them, strong, potent offense. I don't know. I think Toronto, they look the part. Let's see if they can actually live up to it when we get to playoff time, because they're a slam dunk playoff team right now.
Lord, let them play the Bruins in the first round. Lord, let Toronto play the Bruins in the first round. Please.
That would be fucking funny. And in number 1, first place overall, fuck you, Rico, and your goddamn Vegas Golden Knights. I love you, bro, but I hate it. I hate it so much that Vegas is just winning. They pummeled the Sharks 6-3, pummeling really Georgiev in the third period. That's about what it was, because the Sharks played well, at least to start that game. But they've just been on a tear. They just know how to win and make it look easy while doing it. They've taken the lead in the entire NHL on points as of today. So it's hard not to rank them at number one. They've been there. They've got that consistent pedigree. Mark Stone is playing and is healthy-ish. So, that's always a problem. It's hard not to have them at number one, moving up 5 spots from Thanksgiving when I had them ranked 6th overall. Well, thank you everyone for joining me on that journey of our power rankings. Corey, I know we had some disagreements towards the back end of the middle,
though. I'm glad because I don't think I really disagreed last time, but I am actually, it might sound weird, I am glad we disagreed in some places.
yeah, it makes for some more conversation, and you made a good point. So, if I went through and updated this and moved Ottawa ahead of Utah and things, and maybe move St. Louis behind both the Canucks and the Hockey Club, maybe it all evens out, or St. Louis ahead of them and they're all together, something like that. I could see it. It's all a bit of a jumble in there for 16 through 22, unfortunately.
Hard to say. And notice everybody how he said I made a good point. One point. I made out of the many points I made, only one of them was good.
Oh, well, sorry about that. No, you made multiple good points.
Nope, it's too late
plural.
now. You've already said
it's too late. Well, you made a strong argument. How about that? Do you accept that?
No, never.
All right. Anyway, thanks for listening through the power rankings. Like you said, I am glad there was more room for discussion today. And to be fair, I want to say as a little thing for the Ottawa Senators, they were also in there as a top mover, moving up 10 spots from where I had them previously. So there is a fair bit of credit to be given there, and maybe I was shy to move them up further.
So there you go, Avs fans and Sharks fans. That's who you should be looking out for as the year continues to go on. But thank you, Dom, for taking the time to put those together. I, of course, really appreciate it because I would have had no time to put those together. So I appreciate you making the sacrifice for the benefit of the many.
Oh, of course. It was my pleasure. Always happy to do the rankings. And what are we saying? Around Valentine's Day, we'll have the next one out for all the folks?
Yeah, that's around game 60 or so. So yeah, that would feel appropriate. And I guess no point in really doing them at the end of the year. We'll kind of know where it all. Well, I guess we could. We could do it right before the playoffs. We could do a
pre-playoff, rank the 16 playoff teams.
Yeah, we'll do a different thing with that though. You know what I mean? We'll share our brackets and everything. So that'll be.
Yeah, we can reveal our full brackets.
Yeah. That'll be a good time. Yes, thank you, Tom. Well, you ready to jump right into it today, Dom?
Ready to go.
I've changed the order of things today. We're just going to jump straight into our games here. Now, Montreal, as of the time of recording, played the Avalanche yesterday, but I'm going to go ahead and save that game for the next episode. And with the games that we are covering, we have Utah, Winnipeg, and of course, Buffalo. I'm actually going to go through Utah and Winnipeg kind of quickly because I really do want to talk at length about Buffalo. But fun fact, Dom, of the 3 games that we're talking about today, I attended 2 of them. So that was a good time. Heck yeah, a lot of hockey. One was a game that we already have, the New Year's Eve game against Winnipeg. And then one I got as a Christmas present for some friends that we got to attend Buffalo together. And boy, I never could have known. Never, ever. But we'll start with Utah. We'll just run through this one period by period. First and foremost, going into this game, the Avs were 31 for 34 on their penalty kill, which is just a complete 180 from the start of the year. We've talked about it ad nauseum already, but it really is remarkable just how much the Avalanche's penalty kill has managed to turn it around. And not only that, the power play is still continuing to score as well. So it just makes me happy that the special teams are now either regressing or progressing to the mean. Even if it's not the absolute best in the league by the time playoff rolls around, as long as they're operating at a high level, that's what you need in order to be successful in the playoffs, even if it's not number one. But I mean, we can see this with quite a few teams. I think the Devils is a good example. The Senators is a good example. And of course, the Avalanche are a good example. Dom, would you agree with me in my sentiment of, man, it's crazy what new goaltending and good goaltending does for a team?
Oh, I absolutely agree. We talked about this at the start of the season and multiple times when I was talking up Blackwood before we saw for sure if it was a sure thing. Is when goaltenders change systems, it is a bit of a lottery. You can do your scouting, but there's no guarantee how a system, how a defense, how a structure in front of a goaltender will be able to improve or negatively impact their play. And there are exceptions to the rule where sometimes goaltenders really are scheme it is irrelevant. They work and they are just so effective behind any scheme of defense in front of them because they are that talented or similarly that bad. Forgive. So, yes, I agree with your sentiment that goaltending can change a franchise around entirely for either better or worse. And sometimes it just depends, not at all, depending on how the transition is and what the scheme is in front of them.
Exactly, which is why it makes teams like Vegas make absolutely no sense to me. Not that Hill and Samsonov have been like terrible by any means, but I mean, looking at some of the better goaltenders in the league, it's like, really? I don't
Yeah,
understand how they're
and
this
that's
good with like really just kind of average goaltending, to be perfectly honest. Like, that's what I'm saying is Hill and Samsonov are neither very good nor very bad. They're just kind of right in the mushy middle with averages. And yet Vegas is having that much success and just yeah. Anyway, we
well, and
don't.
it
I don't
is
want to.
Vegas's strong style. They are strong on the forecheck. They are physical on the
True. Very
boards.
true.
They are physical in the middle. They are just a big team. They are surprisingly fast for their size, but since they are so big, it is hard to measure up and meet their physicality. And over the length of a game, they can tire out teams just and get better space, but better job boxing people out in the middle. And that's why we see them as the best third period team in the league, is because they can close out games and just outmuscle teams when it gets close. That really does provide a huge impact though and make it easier for your goaltender, like I've talked about. So I feel like a lot of goalies could go there and revive their career right now.
I. This isn't even like a meme. Like, I'm not even saying this to be mean. I am genuinely curious if we sent Alex Georgiev to Vegas, how that would go.
Well,
Really
I would
curious
trade
to know.
Alex Georgiev and I don't know,
I feel like you could do
let's do
Samsonov
some
Georgiev
picks.
swap. I feel like you
Oh,
could
I
do a
was gonna
like
say
Samsonov
like,
Georgiev
yeah,
swap.
I guess they might not part with Aiden Hill, but I was gonna say offer a package, but we have Askarov, we don't need Hill, so yeah, we could do the Samsonov
Yeah, we
straight.
could
Maybe
do
we
it.
throw a sixth in there or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious just to see because I think you're right. I don't want to dwell on them too much longer, but Vegas does have a strong system that benefits goaltenders, as you just mentioned. But I don't know why we're talking about those stupid people. Because I brought them up. Anyway, Utah. For the first period, the Avalanche were in attack mode, and it was stated that the teams were sniffing each other out. I disagree. This is already their third meeting, and these teams know each other already. Not to mention that they're already familiar with each other being in the same conference. It's still the Arizona Coyotes. It's the same players. There's nothing that they're sniffing out. But the Avs work to utilize their speed and create plays around Utah, and I predicted that this game would be a goalie battle though, because both netminders were fantastic, and that's really what it ended up being throughout the entire game. The Avs did come out faster and harder, but Utah responded with chances of their own throughout the period, but I felt that they didn't create as many dangerous chances as the Avs did. But to Utah's credit, they didn't sit idly by, but it was an otherwise solid period by the boys in burgundy and blue, and it walked away. I forget the score at the end of this period. I can't remember if it was 0-0 or if there was some score there. But period two, some important stats there was the Avalanche once again have 94 points by Demon, which is the most so far this season. And I know that trend has only continued going through the games upcoming. The Avalanche's defense has always been encouraged to jump up in the play, but also be responsible on the puck. And I think they've balanced that really well, particularly against Winnipeg. And I think that's why Cale Makar won the Conn Smythe in the year that the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup. He was not afraid to activate and get the Avs points. Also, this was 16 power or penalty kills in a row for Colorado after they killed off another in this period. Also, we had a return from injury, which I didn't even know was happening until I was watching the game, and I didn't even notice him until the second period. I felt so terrible. But Josh Manson returned in this period. His presence has been felt immediately. He's always been the big body checker on the Avalanche, but can also lend some offense here and there and is typically pretty responsible with the puck. I was glad that he was back. He's definitely a better replacement over some of the guys that we've been having on the blue line, not that they have been. But you know, the hockey club had bite in the second period, and throughout the first 15 minutes of it, they attacked, even holding the Avs to multiple minutes without a shot. They played keep away and take away hockey well. They hemmed the boys in their own zone. However, it still felt like Utah's overall high danger chances were few and far between, and that ended up being reflected on the scoreboard. Not only that, but in the final five, the Avalanche turned it back on and began to attack once again. It is a genuine miracle that Utah came away with only being down by one at the conclusion of the period, but I can really attribute a lot of that to the stellar play of Karel Vejmelka, or as Dom and I like to recall, Karel Vejmelka. How often, though, do you see Nathan MacKinnon fight? Well, pretty much it's always been against the Yotes or Utah. 5 of his 9 career fights have been against this club. Also, once again, the reffing has been poor this game, even when the Avalanche have benefited. I thought there was soft and poor calls for both teams. Now, period 3 is where Utah truly offensively exploded. The first 12 minutes, their passing was better. Ozone possession, better. And more prolonged, and it was more prolonged. And it was evident that the Avalanche began to grow frustrated as small mistakes began to mount. But the Avs still had their chances, and Arturi Lehkonen once again was the fucking hero. The MacKinnon-Lehkonen connection is truly undefeated. It's what got us the Stanley Cup, which is why I am always so confused when Jared Bednar decides to move them off of the same line. It's just, they are meant to be. Do not ever take them away from each other. Utah, though, had me stressed throughout the remainder of the game. They will not go gentle into that good night. The Avs needed to ensure that they were dialed in as dialed as Blackwood to finish the game. You want Lecky to have the chance to get the hat trick, but it's always safe to just get the insurance goal with how unbelievably aggressive Utah was playing. But to top it off, Lehkonen did get his first career hat trick. Gotta love it. To me, it wasn't the Avs' best win. I just know that this team has another gear to defensively play better, and they've shown it. And funnily enough, they really did show it the next game. But my goodness, with Mackenzie Blackwood in net, they have a chance every night.
Well, you're damn right.
That's right.
Mackenzie Blackwood in net gives you a chance any night, any team, any given Sunday. That right there is just a factual statement. But MacKinnon also, like you said, not often a fighter. He's more of a lover of his, not a lover in that sense, but a lover of his fancy footwork and speed on the ice. And that is how he makes his living. And to see him fight against the Yotes/Utes as often as he has is quite interesting. I wonder what that is, or who the players are that maybe have bad blood with MacKinnon in that exchange.
I think he was just mad. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be real. I think he was just mad.
Fair enough. But yeah, you know, he can take out his anger on a team like that when the rest of the team can handle their business and get the win. So I think good time to do that.
Yes, indeed. Well, a bit of a sidebar between Utah and the Jets. Colorado had some action happen, and I really liked this short little article from Arif Dean at Colorado Hockey Now. So just some points that I wanted to share from it. First and foremost, in between Utah and the Jets game, the Avalanche traded with the Predators again. Man, the Avalanche are just like, hey, Preds, Barry Trotz, we want that guy. Can we have him? And Barry Trotz is like, sure. And then we have a new guy. And that's just how it's gone all season. It's kind of weird how much inter-division trading the Avalanche have done, particularly with the Predators. Well, during that time, they acquired another Finnish forward, Juuso Parssinen, who, Dom, I don't know if you remember, his most notable highlight was him tucking a goal in between his legs and then shrugging his shoulders very nonchalantly, very coolly after. That was Juuso Parssinen. So he was acquired for, oh my gosh, his name, Andre Pavel. There it is. Who unfortunately was a great prospect for the Avs, but literally every year would get injured right before training camp and just never really had the chance to get off his feet to really prove himself to the team. So Parssinen has played a couple games with the Avs now, centering the fourth line. Really gritty two-way guy. Hope he can really start to be that reclamation project that the Avs are so good at doing. But the interesting thing that I pulled from this was the the NHL record for most Finns in a forward group is 5 by Dallas in 2005 and 2006. Well, the Avs tied that against the Winnipeg Jets with Rantanen, Lehkonen, Kiviranta, Inola, and Parsonen all slated to play.
Oh, interesting. Also, quick little interruption here.
Please.
The World Juniors right now, the gold medal game between the USA and Finland is going to
Is it
overtime.
happening right now?
It is tied 3-3, and we are in the intermission prior to overtime. There will be continuous 3-on-3 hockey with full intermissions going forward.
Well, please keep us updated then. I was not aware the gold medal game was today. Oh, that is very exciting then. You love that it's going all the way to overtime. The two best junior teams going at each other. Oh, man, that's very exciting.
The bronze medal game went to overtime earlier as well.
Very good. And who was that between?
And a shootout. That one was between Sweden and Czechia, I believe. I did not see the outcome of that one. I just saw that it went to overtime. So I'm trying to find that right now.
Cool.
I don't actually have the game live.
No, that's okay.
I'm only just picking up news updates of it. But that was our breaking news update that the U.S. has forced overtime against Finland. They were down at 1.3-1 and have made it 3-3 to force 3v3 overtime. Not at all confusing.
Yeah, that is very interesting. That isn't. Well, Dom, speaking of the Finns, though, I'd like to let you know that all of the hat tricks scored by the Avalanche this year have been done by Finnish players. Only Finnish players have scored hat tricks for the Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, wow.
So the Finns are the one. Well, before the Winnipeg game, we had confirmation that Jonathan Drouin would make his return in this game, which was a fantastic news. And I foolishly said, now, if only we can keep if we could just keep everybody healthy and nobody else gets injured when this game happens. Boy, oh boy, I knocked on wood, but I really shouldn't have said anything. We'll talk about it here in a second. But one other funny thing I found from this article was this quote. Let's call Mackenzie Blackwood the Valeri Nichushkin whisperer. They are stall neighbors in the Avs' practice facility locker room, and we're chatting up a storm after coming off the ice. I've never seen Nichushkin smile and laugh that much with a teammate. Blackwood is just a genuinely easygoing guy. These are the next level positive vibes that have been emanating from the Avalanches lately.
Wow.
I mean, it tells you that not only did Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood bring stability and fun nicknames to the Avalanche goaltending crease, but I think they have genuinely brought a new, and we talked about it already, a new mentality to the room, and I think this is just evidence of that.
That is, sorry, a fair point. I was distracted here.
No, that's all right.
By getting caught up on the World Juniors. It was
That's
Czechia
fair.
over Sweden in the shootout today.
Good to hear.
Czechia, fun fact, they did lose to the U.S. 4-1 in the semifinals, hence their appearance in the bronze medal game and to win the bronze medal. But they previously beat Canada 4-3, giving Canada a very early exit at home in Ottawa from the World Juniors. So anyway, sorry for that side tangent.
No,
Back to
that's
the
all
Avs.
right.
You were saying about who was bringing up your team.
Yes, and that's all I really had to say. And I was just curious on your thoughts on Blackwood, but I also like to interject on what you said. Czechia also defeated Canada in the quarterfinals last year. So 2 years in a row, Canada has fallen to Czechia in the quarterfinals. It was a pretty massive upset. Not only does Canada lose to Latvia, they lose to the U.S., but they also lose to Czechia. So that was fun. But
another late breaking update. 8 minutes into overtime, we have a goal. It is from Teddy Stiga, Stiga for the United States, assisted by Zeev Weem and Brody Zimmer. And so the United States will win back-to-back gold medals in the IIHF World Juniors for the first time in a long time.
And I think, you know what, we can sidebar about this a little bit. This is not my own original idea, I'd like to say. I just have read this, heard this around, that it proves that the rest of the world is catching up now and that Canada is not strictly the dominant force in hockey anymore. Now, I think there was a lot of things working against Canada, mostly the management for going into this World Juniors. But I'd also like people to remember that it's called the World Juniors for a reason. There are teenagers playing in this tournament. So please direct your any anger towards the adults in charge and not towards the kids who are playing on the ice. Once again, they are children. Do not flame kids, please.
Yeah, let's be nice to them. That's just, it's unnecessary to flame anyone like that. But like you said, to do it to kids is just too much. But I will say here also, like you said, the rest of the world is catching up. There are some who believe that Petteri Rimpian, the goalie for Finland, should be deserving of the MVP, and it seems like he's made a lot of massive saves during the tournament, and is expected, as I'm reading here from Scott Wheeler, staff writer for the NHL, that he should get drafted as an overager in June. So, like you said, the world is catching up. There are great goaltenders everywhere. So Canada's pool of talent, while large, is not necessarily miles ahead of the rest of the pack anymore.
I think that's a good way to put it. Canada will always still have probably the largest pool of talent, but now we're seeing that talent appear from everywhere. And it's exciting. I want more players from across the world and sometimes smaller countries, smaller programs to be recognized, like Latvia. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, like Latvia, like Czechia. I don't know if Czechia always gets the credit it deserves. I think people think Finland, they think Sweden when you have things like the Four Nations. People, I mean, right now don't want to think about the fact that Russia has an incredibly talented hockey team as well. So there's a lot of teams around the world that it's not just Canada or the U.S., even though the U.S. won this instance, that have this big talent pool. And I do think the U.S. has maybe caught up to Canada as far as the depth of their prospect pool is these days. I mean, maybe not exactly when you have kids like Macklin Celebrini who will play for Canada, but it's hard to compete with that with his raw talent. But the amount of talent that the Americans have, the options, I think, has grown to be closer to that of Canada's.
Absolutely. Well, we'll go ahead and keep it rolling here because, once again, Buffalo. So here's the Avalanche versus...
Sorry for that interruption.
No, this is the Avalanche versus the Jets, and I just summed it up like this. This was nothing short of a juggernaut matchup. The Avs received the gift of the Jets being on the tail end of a back-to-back and didn't have to contend with Hellebuck in net. But that didn't make the opposition any less dangerous. The Avs did an excellent job limiting the Jets' opportunities, but they still got them, and nearly all of them were dangerous. As a note, Mackenzie Blackwood made 5 high-danger saves in the game from what I could count, and the 2 goals that actually went in were right in front of the net, and some of them were a little goofy. The first one was goofy. The second one, they caught the first one they caught the Avs in the change. Second one was a little goofy. Now, 5 might not seem like a lot, but with a total of 22 shots on goal, that's 22% of the Jets' shots were high-danger chances. Now, the Jets did generate some insane chances, and a few defensive mistakes led to some shots from the slot, but that same defense for the Avs did a great job clearing the puck away. Both teams did hem the other in the zone at multiple points throughout the game, but I feel the Avs ultimately did the better job of creating consistent offense throughout the game. Credit to Eric Comrie, though, who only let in 1 additional goal, but did have to make more saves on the whole, as well as some great stops on some big boy attempts from the Avalanche's top lines. The bummer, but it feels par for the course. Drouin returns, and of course, Valeri Nichushkin goes out and doesn't return in the game. What was funny is I didn't even realize he was missing till a fan next to me pointed it out. Thankfully, in regards to Nichushkin, we have learned that he is only expected to miss 7 to 10 days. He is only a day-to-day. They thought it would be an upper body injury as he did take an elbow to the head that was not noticed or called, but it was in fact a lower body injury, so who knows? He's had some issues with his ankle in the past, but clearly it doesn't seem like anything severe, and usually the Avalanche are good at giving their guys the time that is necessary for them to come back, but we can only hope Valeri Nichushkin doesn't miss too much time because, man, he has been vital every single game. Now, it was an overall fantastic performance by the Avs, who succeeded in the clash of the Titans. They cannot afford to lose and give up any ground. Every win moving forward matters, particularly against these divisional opponents. The Avalanche, in fact, have 7 divisional games this month alone. And of course, every night that I'm checking the scores when our other divisional opponents are playing, they're winning too. The Avalanche genuinely cannot lose ever again because evidently our divisional opponents are deciding that they are not going to lose any either. It's very frustrating to watch right now because the Avs just can't make up any ground. They're pretty much stuck right in place. If Minnesota just loses a game or two, they can catch back up and maybe even usurp second place. But it just shows you the depth and talent inside the Western Conference, as Dom mentioned throughout his power rankings. So it's frightening to say the least. So something on the lighthearted end, fun story. Of course, I already mentioned, but I attended this game, a fantastic way to celebrate the end of 2024, in my opinion. But as I was walking across the parking lot with my friends and family, we parked pretty far. I was joking around with a close friend who came with me and said, in a mocking voice, of course, Jets fans will argue, well, Hellebuck wasn't in net. But both your goaltenders got to step it up any given night. And of course, I gave my compliments to Comrie, who had stepped it up that night. Sorry, everyone.
I mean, it does sound like a great performance from Comrie. And just going back to something you said, it is hard for Colorado to afford to lose any games. Dallas is on a 4-game win streak. Minnesota's on a 3-game win streak. Colorado and Dallas tied on points. They both have 24 wins. Dallas has that in 2 fewer games. Minnesota's 5 points ahead. Winnipeg is 6. So it really is, or 7, excuse me, for Winnipeg. So it is really nip and tuck. It's really tight, that race in the Central, and it means the difference of getting that 3 seed versus being in a wild card spot, and that's huge. That's really, really huge.
And the frustrating part is, even when they're losing, they're often pushing the game to overtime and losing at that point. So it's a frustrating thing. But to continue this story, I mock Jets fans, and at this point I was wholly unaware of the Jets fan off to my left, who I learned from my friend smirked and laughed at my comments, which I was relieved to hear, because I admittedly would have absolutely not said that if I knew that he was standing there. But I did mean it in good faith and in good fun, as I also complimented Comrie, who actually did have a really great game, as he made more stops on the night as a whole. But the message here is that we are all fans of the same sport. Yes, we are fans of different teams, and we get each other's goats and get under each other's skin sometimes, but we are all fans of the greatest sport on earth, and it is in our mutual love of that brings us together.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, that's the basis of what brought you and I together, man. So that's absolutely true. Is fans of the game have a deeper bond than the team, the colors they fly, or that's the intent.
So
of the
Jets,
true fans of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So Jets fans, what I'll say to you is, pull your goalie. Anyway. I am poking the bear a little bit. Okay.
It's an Avs Fancast. They can deal with it.
That's right. No Winnipeg fans listen to this. Anyway, it's time. buffaLo.
Oh no.
So I'm not even going to read my notes for the first 2 periods here because they're not really necessary. One thing, I'll just summarize it here, is, first of all, this was Bo Byram's first game back in Denver, funnily enough. Miss Bo every day. There was just never going to be room for him to move up to the top line with Cale Makar and Devon Taves in the way. But, man, he has a lot of upside, a lot of talent. He even scored on a breakaway in the first period, which just felt disgustingly poetic. So, you're happy for him there. You're not happy that he's on a team with such a losing culture, which we'll get into here. But for the first 2 periods of play, the Avalanche did not look good. I'm being totally honest. This was just not a good game from the Avalanche perspective. They did not come out well. They just kept getting beat by the Sabres. Not to mention that the Avalanche's PK had been so good, and this is the game that they let in not 1 but 2 power play goals to Jason Zucker. I mean, come on. Really? So it was just a frustrating game all around. That was until we made it to the 3rd period. Avs are down 3-1. And there were multiple points in this game that the Avalanche brought it to within one. So they were down 3-0 going into the second. They score one early off of a Ross Colton gritty goal, and they managed to then bring it within one later down the line. And it's now 3-2. So you're thinking, okay, in the third, there's a chance that we can tie it up here. We can come back. And unfortunately, that is not what ended up happening. Oh, yeah. I'm looking at my points of discussion here. First of all, we'll come back to this point. Dom, I want to get into this a little bit. I want to know what you think about this. So there was a disallowed goal for Colorado earlier. Nathan MacKinnon scored this absolutely disgusting goal off of a Buffalo player's skates in front. That goal was called back because of offside. Now, this offside was so unbelievably close. Yes, you could tell it was offside by the fucking micro inches that the puck was ahead of whomever was moving it across the blue line at the time. But riddle me this. I don't feel like that's the point of the rule. Our radio announcer, Connor McGahey, said it best that sports should be judged in real time. You cannot sit here and tell me that made that much of a fucking difference in the ability of the Buffalo defense to make a play. That did not give the Avalanche an unfair advantage with the puck being millimeters over the line before the player's skate is. I just feel it's utterly ridiculous that if a ref isn't seeing it with his eyes, then what does it matter? Like, if he's catching it and he's blowing the offside dead, clearly then it is a significant enough play that the offense would have had an unfair advantage. But if you're not seeing that and you have to spend 15 minutes trying to figure out if it was offside or not, what does it matter?
Yeah, I think I know the point they will say of that review of offside is to make sure they get the call right. But I think that's the whole point of the clear and obvious element is if it's really not clear and obvious that it's offsides, if it's not something that you can determine quickly, then it should just stand. I mean, if it's that close,
Exactly.
like we're not here to play this game by millimeters and spend 15 minutes while they're trying to make a decision. That's not good for the production, so it's not good for the NHL either. That's not good. It's not fun for the fans. It's not good for anybody. It really takes a big bite out of the game, and so that's it, I don't think that's really the intent of the rule either, and they should at least look to set a limit on that and keep the time constrained if they are going to do close reviews like that.
And I just think the offside review in general needs a massive change or just needs to go. Like, I understand, especially with instances like the Matt Duchene one that we talked about where he was a mile offside, it wasn't called, he scores, right? Like, that I understand, but I'll keep talking in circles. When it's that close, it doesn't matter. It does not change the flow of the game. A defender could not have gotten into a better position. They weren't, ahead of the play. They weren't camping in the back. There is nothing that changes the result of that play if they were, half a fucking second earlier. It doesn't matter. But I just wanted to know your thoughts on the matter. We should make a whole episode on fucking NHL rules that we think are stupid. And that's definitely probably my number one because, man, has that bit the Avs in the ass so much.
Yeah, that is totally fair. And to be fair, I looked it up here and see what you're talking about. And it is such a small margin. I do agree with you that it was a dumb overturn. They spent way too much time on it. And we could spend a whole episode talking about it.
Exactly. And of course, the refs don't have the luxury of seeing a fucking replay in the floor that the coaches do on every single play. So, yeah, it's frustrating. Well, Dom, on my next point here, I have a clip for you, and you may have seen it, but I'd just like to show it to you in real time and just get your thoughts on what you see. So I'm going to go ahead and go live here, and we already have the clip muted. So just let me know when you're in the live stream here and you're ready to
I can see it.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can see it.
If I hit play, is that play for you?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So let's take a look around the net here and just watch everything. So here comes Zach Benson around.
He got into the net.
There it
bumped
is.
Up.
He falls on Scott Wedgwood. Scott Wedgwood is on the ground. Zach Benson comes around and tucks it. Samuel Girard takes exception to that.
And
There's
he's
Scott
clearly
Wedgwood,
hurt.
still hurt on the ice. So let's go ahead and count from the moment that Benson, and here's my whole thing. I feel that Benson put himself in a position and turned into Parker Kelly that caused Parker Kelly, to be in a position where he causes Benson to fall. But even Jared Bednar himself said that our guy pushed Benson onto Wedgwood. Fine, accidents happen. You know what I mean? I'm willing to accept that. I'm completely willing to accept that Parker Kelly shoved Zach Benson onto Scott Wedgwood. That is not the problem here. Let's fucking watch. Let's count together. So fall, there's the injury. 10 seconds. So we're at 10 seconds of the video. Let's just go. Still going. Still going. Almost 5 seconds that he's laying there in a fucking heap and the ref's just staring at him.
Man is in a fetal position with the ref looking at him, and the ref just moves out of the way to let the goal happen.
That's not what I meant to do.
Tell me this man did not have money on the fucking...
Ref is right here. He's right here.
Yeah.
Ref is right here.
There's the other ref.
Here he is.
Coming around. Yep.
Here he is. Right here. Wedgwood's hurt.
He's staring at him.
He's right here.
Nope, now he's not looking.
Right
now
here.
he's staring at him. He keeps
Right
staring at him, and then he stares at the goal.
What also pisses me off is this celebration by Zach Benson. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I understand if you're going to score the goal, but, like, have some fucking class. Really? You can fucking see the goalie's down in a heap. Just put the fucking puck in the net and move on. Don't fucking act like you just scored the fucking OT winner, you fucking asshole. Oh, man. So let me tell you, watching this happen live, everybody's saying there is no way that goal should have counted. There is no way that goal should have counted. Well, the goal stood. Dom, the goal stood. And we'll get into the whole thing here in a little bit, but that goal stood. The Avalanche are now
dumb.
The Avalanche are now down 4-2 because this goal stood.
Can I watch the fight that happened afterward?
Yes, you can absolutely watch the fight. Here, let me rewind it so you can see the scrum in its entirety.
You know me, I love hockey fights.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if they're line brawls over shit like this when there should be a brawl. If there's ever going to be a line brawl, this is the time.
Yeah, it was. It got pretty heated after this, and we'll talk about it.
It's pretty fucked.
Thankfully,
like your goalie is lying there in pain, grabbing at his ankle, just like sprawled over.
I am happy.
And then they score and celebrate. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm talking slow.
No. I don't mean to be interrupted. Please go ahead.
No, that was all it was. Was really that. It's just like your goalie's in a heap, and then they score, and then they celebrate. Like,
yeah,
it's just one too many things on there.
It feels like a classless fucking act. Like, I first of all, I don't think it's right that you score anyway, but I understand you have a game to win. You need to score. So yeah, I mean, I can accept that Parker Kelly shoves Zach Benson into him. Fine. I can accept that fact. Why are we not blowing the play dead? It gets shot. It's in the corner. There's no imminent scoring chance here. Like, what are we doing? There's no imminent scoring chance. We'll get into Jared Bednar's comments here in a little bit. But after this happens, it's 4-2. The Avalanche are clearly pissed. The fans are pissed. Everybody is pissed. And so, in the game, you would think that the people who would be taking the penalties in this third period would be the Avalanche, getting some retaliation. That is not what happened. They dialed the fuck in. And for some reason, after this play, the Sabres decided to play dirtier for fucking no reason. And so they had a parade to the penalty box which, long story short, ends with the Avalanche having a 5-on-3. And you know what's going to happen if you give the Avalanche a 5-on-3. Mikko Rantanen lasers it past Luukkonen to make it 4-3 in the score. So you're like, all right, we're still in this game. Once again, the Avs bring it to within 1. Okay? So we move through the rest of the period. And they scored that fairly early on. And I'd like to say the Wedgwood incident happened within the first 5 minutes of the period. All of this crazy shit that happened within the first 5 minutes. So we make it now to about 3 minutes left in the game. The Avalanche are now down 5-3. after a deflating Jason Zucker hat trick. Let me tell you, seeing those Buffalo hats go onto the ice, you're just sitting there as a fan. Your blood is boiling because you feel like the Avalanche deserve to win this game after everything that has happened. They deserve to win, and you're just like, great, awesome, glad that happened. It was just a lapse in play. A penalty happens behind the net that isn't called. It's just great. And I have no hate towards Zucker, but man, was that play just deflating. So you're like, great, we have 3 minutes left. You know, we're now down by 2. We've been struggling to score in this game. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. But, Dom, as you know, is the nature of hockey. If there is still time left on the fucking clock, there is time to score goals. Is that correct?
It is indeed. I saw a goal scored with less than a second left on the clock in a Sharks loss this past week and a half.
So there you go. So as long as there's time on the clock, there's time left to score. Well, Cale Makar with about, I want to share this. So there was 2 things. I look at my friend who I had brought to the game, who hadn't been to an Avs game in a very long time. It's 5-3. I look at him and I say, buddy, it might not happen tonight, but the Sabres are known for blowing this kind of thing. So I said that first. Then a gentleman and his girlfriend get up and left with, I think, 2 minutes and 50 seconds left in the game. The gentleman had a Buffalo Sabres jersey on, and his girlfriend had an Avalanche jersey on. And I look at my other friend and I say, now watch, the Avalanche they're going to regret leaving. The Avalanche are going to go and score 3 goals. Well, Dom, you know the score of this game. I know the score of this game. As the Avalanche progress at 6-on-5 with their goaltender pulled, Cale Makar fires an absolute piss missile past Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen to make it 5-4. So everybody's freaking out because, of course, you bring it within 1 again for the 3rd time in this game. I mean, it was a glorious goal. It was his 2nd on the night. You're feeling good, but you're not there yet. So the Avalanche...
How much time's left on the clock?
I'll tell you. So the Avalanche are still pushing at 6-on-5. And another note that I have here is the Sabres kept missing the empty net. The Avs did not play this perfectly. They kept losing possession every once in a while, and there were multiple instances that the Sabres could have hit the empty net and iced this game. But they kept missing and therefore kept icing. And eventually, that paid off in the Avalanche's favor. Cale Makar fires it wide, lands on the stick of Mikko Rantanen, passes it to McKinnon, who sees Drouin drifting in the bumper slot with about 7 seconds to go. Jonathan Drouin wires one, high right side of Luukkonen, tie game. Dom, I cannot even describe to you the volume in that arena. I have been a part of some emotional games. This one, I think, ranks number 2 on most emotion I've felt in a game.
Wow.
But I lost my mind, as you saw in my subsequent social media posts following the tie goal. But
yeah, indeed.
I think as a fan, though, you knew at that point there is no fucking chance we are losing this game. So we make it to overtime, and it did not last long. First of all, the Avalanche are generating chances, but Buffalo gains possession, and you're like, shit. Well, the boys hustle back to prevent an odd man rush, and Devon Taves, the absolute wizard that he is, strips Tage Thompson of the puck and puts himself on a breakaway. I was on the phone with my mom. I'm like screaming, it's Taves, and he just wires it past Luukkonen for the game winner. The roof might as well have come off at Ball Arena. There are no words to truly describe this game other than what I've told you, but to describe the internal feelings, you just had to be there. It was truly one of the craziest games I have ever seen, and I feel blessed that I got to witness it live.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible game to watch, an incredible comeback, and just an incredible atmosphere, like you're saying, with how loud it was. I imagine it must have been an incredible, life-changing or very possible to forget experience.
Truly. I mean, I'm honestly still relishing in the win from this game. But before I wrap it up, I do want to talk more about Scott Wedgwood. And I want, Dom, I think it's important that as media people, amateur or otherwise, that we read both sides of the coin, right? And so I came across a Sabres View article on the whole situation. And there's just a couple of quotes that I want to pull from here. And once again, everybody, I will link every article that I talk about, as I always do. There was some comments from this article that I was really not happy with. Now, I'll say this. I understand that whoever the writer was for this, I'll let you see his name in the actual article itself. I understand that this was clearly coming from a place of frustration because the Avalanche not only came back against Buffalo once, but now twice in quite dramatic fashion. And it's arguable for which one was the worst comeback in terms of being a Buffalo Sabres fan. But to say what this person said, and he did compliment the Avs, particularly Cale Makar, at multiple points. But what he said and what I'm about to say, I was frankly really not a fan with. So I won't read you the whole thing, but we're going to read it right here. We're going to start here. Ross Colton made it 3-2 just a minute 5 into the third period. But a gritty goal by Zach Benson gave the Sabres their 2-goal lead back just 22 seconds after Colton scored. Dom, in what fucking reality would you call the goal that Zach Benson scored a gritty goal?
I can't think of a reality.
A gritty goal?
I can't think of a falsity either. I mean, it's just so ridiculous.
It was the easiest goal Zach Benson will ever score in his entire career. Zero opposition. The goaltender is in a fetal position in the ice. There is nothing gritty about that goal. Yes, Benson's so. Oh yes, I realized I never finished. I'm happy to report that Scott Wedgwood, we avoided the worst. They said it was not a high ankle sprain. He will be okay. He is still technically week to week, but they anticipate that he will only be missing a couple of weeks. So it does seem to be an ankle-related injury. But yes, it does seem that after initial evaluations that he will overall be okay. So we are happy to hear that. Wedge Dad, he is okay. It will be a couple weeks without him, which is tough because we have this back-to-back coming up against Chicago and the Blackhawks. So rookie goaltender Trent Miner will get his second Avalanche game. So here's looking at you, kid. Here's the best. But to carry on in this article, Benson scored a wraparound with Wedgwood on ice rolling in pain. The building went wild as fans thought Benson crashed into their goaltender and hurt him. Nothing could have been further from the truth as Parker Kelly spun Benson right on top of Wedgwood's right leg. This reality I can accept. Here's where I really get upset. Avalanche head coach Jared Bednar got caught up in the fans' displeasure and stupidly challenged the play, thus putting his team shorthanded. It was stupid because Buffalo was 2 for 2 with the extra man and had scored on 6 of their last 12 power plays. I guess Bednar knew what he was doing because his players really took the energy from the fans flipping out on the referees. So, fun fact, before you call my head coach stupid, maybe you should do your due diligence as a media person and collect all of the facts and maybe listen to Jared Bednar's post-game comments. So first and foremost, Jared Bednar is not so shallow or easily swayed that he called the challenge because he agreed with the fans. No. In fact, Jared Bednar himself said that he knew for a fact it was not goaltender interference. He knew it was not goaltender interference. The reason he made the challenge was one in protest of the ref refusing to blow the play dead. I'll send you the video after, Dom. I'd love to hear what he had to say. But he's perfectly right when he said they do it for other regular players all the time. When a guy goes down on the ice, doesn't matter who has possession, they blow the play dead. if somebody is hurt? Why is there suddenly an exception with the goaltender? That's why he was upset. He was pissed because he sees one of their best goalies laying in his net in a fetal position and the refs refusing to do anything about it. And so he challenges the play, in his words, to give the refs another chance to do the right thing. And what the refs could say was there was intent to blow the whistle, and therefore that is no goal. They can do that. That is a rule. We have seen it happen. Even if the whistle is not blown, if the ref had what they called intent to blow the whistle, the play can be called back. So that is why Jared Bednar challenged the play, not in your mind for a stupid reason. Do not fucking sit here and call my head coach stupid.
Yeah, it's not a professional way to refer to an opponent's head coach. I know we talk about teams and GMs and things, but it's disrespectful
in this context,
case
utterly
because
disrespectful.
Of an injury. Yeah, I think it's okay to be frustrated and to call out your own office if need be, if it's doing something like the Rangers or an opposing one for dirty play. But even then, I don't think it gets to that level, especially not calling someone stupid when there's an injury involved. Like that's just such a one-sided and shallow reality to be focused on.
But it's just you are missing the facts for what was even said here. Like if you would just do your due diligence and maybe go and listen to Jared Bednar's post-game comments, you would understand why he challenged the play. Instead, you're sitting here in your own little bubble thinking that Jared Bednar is so foolish as to just be like, the fans were booing. I should challenge the play. No, there's a reason that the motherfucker came in and won the Stanley Cup in 5 years. There's a reason he's won at every level. That's because he's a consummate professional. And when he gets pissed, it's probably for a good fucking reason. I have seen Jared Bednar use curse words literally never, and he used 2 in the same press conference. So, yeah, it got me a little heated to see such a rude reference to my coach.
Yeah, it's a very immature and disrespectful take from an opposing team, and a team that does not have a leg to stand on, for the record.
And I'd ultimately like to say that obviously it is difficult to, read every piece of media, look at every fact, facet, whatever. I understand that, and I clearly miss shit all the time, as do you, as does everybody in this sphere. However, that information was very easily accessible before you fucking got your fingers typing away on your keyboard to say what you said. So that was not hard to find, especially with as controversial as it was. So it's just a call to do better. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect as a writer, sir, but please do not sit here and call my head coach stupid. So I have one final summary here for the Sabres. The Sabres as a whole, the Sabres could have won this game easily, as a matter of fact, as I ultimately feel the Avs did not play well, as I mentioned. Even after they became supercharged with emotion with the Wedgwood incident, the Sabres still broke through one more time for the Jason Zucker hat trick. That's the remarkable part, is that the Sabres got a hat trick and still lost the game. Reminiscent of the Avalanche's early struggles when Mikko Rantanen got a hat trick against Vegas in a high-scoring losing effort. But Buffalo shot themselves in the foot when they became the incredibly undisciplined ones after the Wedgwood incident, committing several egregious penalties. And for what? If anything, the Avalanche should have been the ones taking the penalties, and they nearly did and took a few here and there, but in retaliation to a dirty or cheap shot by the Sabres. This gave the Avs the 5-on-3 for Mikko to bring the game within 1, but the Sabres then pick up the 5th goal because the Avs just struggled to keep out rush chances in second efforts. Not only that, but the Avs had their goalie pulled for over 3 minutes and multiple shots at an empty net that they missed and couldn't put away. It was put nicely to me that the Sabres do not have trouble scoring, but they do have trouble keeping the lead. The Sabres led the Avalanche the entire game, but the result was still a loss in their column. The Sabres have talent, and their youthful players have so much potential to do well and excel, but their management is failing them. it isn't a matter of a lack of palm trees or no state income tax, but a lack of commitment to win, a lack of commitment to spend for their players, and a lack of a backbone to not control and micromanage every little thing and aspect of their players, a la Jack Eichel. This team has drafted players that have gone on to win Stanley Cups and could be one of, if not the best team in the league easily. But instead, it's just one poor choice after another, and now losing is acceptable on all fronts. The team and players don't deserve to be treated this way, and the fans especially don't deserve to be treated this way. There are 16 teams who make the playoffs every year, but your team shouldn't be the one closing in on a professional American sports record.
Yeah, yikes.
So
that's all I gotta say is yikes.
Closing in on 14 seasons. Well, Dom, thank you for letting me rant about the buffaLo game. It was an indescribable experience, and I hope at some point I'd love to hear about some of the games that you found to be your most emotional experiences. But really, after a rough end of the year, the Sharks have seemingly gotten back on the right foot to start the new one. The wins may not come today, but the future is bright. Dom, why don't you tell us more? It's time for In the Tank with Dom.
Well, thank you so much, Captain. Happy to be back in the tank, and thank you again to everyone sticking with us after we had a little bit of time off. So we have 5 games to cover, and I'm going to do my best to go through them quickly because it has been a while since we last spoke on the pod. It was actually just around the Christmas holiday, and so on the 27th, Friday the 27th, we're going to first talk about the loss to the Vegas Golden Knights at home for the Sharks. And I'm going to start with some positives from this game. The first of which is rookie defenseman, I believe, or at least young prospect defenseman, Mook Madulin scored his first NHL goal. He has been up with the NHL team for a little bit now, and he's starting to settle into that role as one of our consistent defensemen. Will Smith and Fabian Zetterlund each scored 2 points in the loss. Will Smith with a goal and an assist, Zetterlund with 2 assists. And the Sharks actually had the lead 3-2 going into the third period. However, on the downsides we have Forgiev continues to collapse when allowed.
Not beating the allegations. Oh, no.
Along with the Sharks' entire power play. In this game against Vegas, it started a minute into the game. The Sharks are on the power play, proceed to collapse and allow a shorthanded goal. Then, we talked about this on our last episode or the one before. Guess what the Sharks did after that, Corey?
Allowed another shorthanded goal?
That's right, Gold Star. They waited 25 whole seconds to allow a second shorthanded goal on the same power play to start the third period. And just like that, they are not leading 3-2. They are losing 4-3. And it continued to get worse from there. Like, Georgie allowed 5 goals on 35 shots in total. So, that's not great. Once again, not even just 4, but 5 in this game. It was really an example of this game. The Sharks were competitive through 2 periods. They were in the lead through 2 periods. They weren't necessarily the better team, but they were in that game. They were in the lead. Those 2 things were facts. And they proceeded to just let it all go in the third period against the best third period team in the league. It obviously doesn't help to have Georgiev in net instead of Askarov or Blackwood, but alas, that is a different story, a different rant. But the Georgiev's 4 goals per game minimum really does continue to rear its ugly head. But to be fair, Vegas is really good, and the Sharks are just not. Despite his fantastic, exciting moments, Macklin Celebrini cannot single-handedly will the team to victory against a legitimate cup contender. So just like I was talking about with Connor Bedard, you can have all this amazing raw talent, but you are one person. You are not on the ice all the time. You cannot make everything by yourself. This is a team sport. And you need to have defense and goaltending just as much as offense. So, unfortunately, while the Sharks were good in this game, at least for 2 periods, once again, third period bug caught them, and so this game falls into the L category. Corey, anything to add for the unfortunate Christmas call that the Sharks received from Vegas?
Only that I watched a lot of that game, and I walked away from it very sad because I was like, "Yay, they'll beat Vegas, woo!" And then that didn't happen. I felt sad with.
That is definitely how I felt, and they got an empty netter very late in the game as well, just to make it 6-3. So that I enjoyed the first two periods, like I said, but I stopped watching after about 5 minutes into the third when they went up by a lot. So that was enough for me. But alas, we had a back to back. And so I was focused more for Saturday against the Calgary Flames at home and this chance to get a win, and knowing that since Georgiev was in the night before, we'll have Askarov in net, and this was a goaltending battle all night long in versus Calgary in San Jose. Askarov and Dustin Wolf both had great save percentages and made some really great saves. Yarrow in particular made some insane saves yet again and appears ready. He really is ready now to fill the vacancy that Mackenzie Blackwood left. He is ready to be that full-time starter next year. For the game, Yarrow was a 938 save percentage, saving 30 out of 32. And like I said before, he made some insane saves that were just stone cold robbery, cutting across on a wide open net. However, it wasn't just Askarov that played well, but the Sharks started the game well. And unfortunately, they were unable to take the lead at any point in the first period, hit posts, some strong shots, but unfortunately nothing that got through and onto the scoreboard. However, that was not the same for Calgary. Huberdeau scored 5 minutes in and shifted some of the momentum their way. Yeah. Yeah, he's been on a tear this year. And really what was unfortunate about this game against Calgary, the big downside is Carl Grunstrom actually took a massive hit at center ice and left the game injured in the first period, and he did not return. I believe he has not returned. I think he is currently on IR. I believe it was an upper body injury, but I cannot say for certain. And realistically, Calgary dominated the majority of chances and as well as shots on goal in the second period. So as much as the Sharks felt like they had that edge, it was very competitive first period. In the second period, Calgary definitely held the edge the whole time. But in a similar sense, Celebrini made the highlight reel with a power play goal to tie up the game in the second. So you had that same effect where one team was better in one period, but the other team scored. There was unfortunately though a responding goal just a few minutes later for Calgary to go back up 2-1. Shortly after that, Yaroslav made an insane save, an absolutely ridiculous save, knocking the puck out of midair. Like this puck is behind him to like his right, but not to the goal line yet, and he just flails his arm out like doing a windmill, knocks it out of midair to make the save. It is just unreal. You need to go watch these highlights, Corey.
I think I
can send them
did.
to you.
I think I did see this save. I did see it on like a highlight battle. It was pretty remarkable. I mean, to be honest, and sorry to interject, Yaroslav's been making those saves almost every game now. He really is just the new Mackenzie Blackwood in terms of making highlight reel save for the Sharks. And, I'll just say this now, give him the starting job now. Really, give him the starting job this year.
Yes.
Give him the experience necessary. Have him start a bunch of games. And I mean, you can give him the rest if you need to, because there's nothing on the line here. But I mean, just get him that experience. I think it's just all the better for him going into next year when, in theory, the Sharks will be a little bit more competitive and so on and so forth. So just get him those games under his belt. So when the Sharks are finally making the journey back to the playoffs, he's ready for it. He's already proven that he can start. He's better than all the other goaltenders on the Sharks right now. So let him start.
By far. He is insanely better. And he should be starting. He should be full-time with the club and not just with VTech out. Like they need to work to move one of the goaltenders, or they need to figure something out because he needs to be starting all the time. I 100% agree. And like I said, the Sharks were in this game, and it was because of the heroics of Askarov, just how Blackwood would keep the team in games. And yes, you can talk about the players on offense who get the wins or sometimes fail to in the losses, but it's the goaltenders who really keep them in the games with consistency, and that is what Askarov has done. It just is not enough. He can't put the puck in the net too, so it was not enough to break San Jose's losing streak that stood at 7 games, 7 straight losses after this game. Ultimately, the Sharks did have multiple chances in the final minutes with Askarov pulled, but could not force overtime. I do have to credit the strong performances from Huberdeau and former Avalanche member Nazem Kadri, who combined for 5 points on the night, including the last second empty net score. This was the one where they scored the empty netter with 0.4 seconds on the clock just to stick the knife in further and make it 3-1 instead of 2-1. Like I said, the Sharks were really in this game, and Calgary was just the better team that finished and got the puck in the net more times. Yaroslav, though, like I said, had an incredible game, as did Dustin Wolf. Both of them were well above 900 on their save percentages, and their goals against were 2 or less. So really great goaltending duel. Again, another very competitive game from San Jose, but it is a regulation loss nonetheless and comes with it 0 points. And that is why the Sharks are in the bottom in the entire West. Corey, anything to add about their game against the Calgary Flames?
Yeah, and I think it speaks to a few of the games on the losing streak here is, the Sharks are competitive. And I think that's what sets them apart from some of the other people in their weight class. For example, the Blackhawks and at times the Predators, is the Sharks, even against high class opponents, can remain competitive. I really do think, I mean, with their talent, I mean, they have kids who can score now. They have veterans who can score now. They have strong goaltending in net. It's just a lack of finishing power. We've talked about it already, but the Sharks just can't finish their games. And I truly believe that that is the biggest factor holding them back.
Well, it's finishing power and it's defense, because I think the problem is the lack of, I think, some consistent defense. Yes, it has been serviceable this year. It is much better than last year, but it is still not great defense. And there is hope for the future, but it is very hit or miss. It is boomer bust, like we talked about with other things, where sometimes those guys are having great games. Cody Cece's had a string of good games recently that I'll get to here shortly, but he's also had some really bad blunders on the season. And so from a veteran, you don't want to see those things happening and having those wave patterns, those rises and falls of consistency. So, having those prospects coming up, if Mook Madulin can cement himself, if we can get Ferraro, I think he's either a trade candidate or someone we need to look at as an extension if we want to keep him. He's going to be that second line type defenseman. So there's some issues there we need to figure out. The good news is, I was going to talk about it later, but Marc-Edouard Vlasic is finally back here in the new year, has played for the team. So that is great to see. There was not a timeline before, so it is rather sudden for us fans. So that is good news on the defensive front. And obviously the Dickinson pick is great for the Sharks, and they can look at top defensive prospects this year as well. But anyway, yes, you are correct. It is finishing power, but I think if they have more defense, their forecheck can get better and not leave them in bad situations where they can have odd man rushes against them. If their forecheck gets better, the whole team gets better. They control more possession. They can do more of their fancy game that they want to play. So that is the whole tie-in I see there. If you follow that journey.
Yeah, I have like a really random question. Well, not totally random, but just thinking about Marc-Edouard Vlasic coming back. I don't know if I've ever asked this. What happened to Logan Couture? Because obviously he's been on LTIR. He's been injured for a long time now. What happened?
I believe it's a hip injury. I think it was like a dislocated or a cracked hip or something like that. That was really hard to rehab, or that was re-injured. I believe he had to have multiple surgeries for that, but we haven't seen Couture skating. So Vlasic was at least skating with the team going back to Christmas, but not someone we had any update on or we're expecting to come off of IR soon. Perhaps the Grundstrom injury was the opening opportunity, because Mook Madulin has earned his stay with the lead team. So it's hard to say with Couture, but at least that's maybe why Vlasic was able to get in when he did without much warning. So maybe if Couture gets better, the same thing could happen, but we haven't seen him skate, so it's clearly been severe and a very difficult recovery.
Trust me, dude. I understand. I understand.
But just because the year of pain wasn't over yet for 2024 The Sharks did play on New Year's Eve, and I was not watching this game because I was doing other things, Corey, going to watch music and enjoy my New Year's Eve with Paige.
For
And
shame, Dom, for shame. Not watching hockey, for shame.
so while I was living my life, I was happily unable to witness the Sharks getting smacked by the Flyers 4-0 to finish out 2024 on an 8-game losing streak. And I went back and I watched the highlights, and I have to say the Sharks were still in this game. Like Celebrini had the first chance; he rang one right off the post on the first shot of the game. And so that was like, it was so close to that early backbreaking score. And he had a second opportunity midway through the first period when a shot trickled through the Philly netminder, but then he was able to spin around and dive on it before it crossed the line or before anyone else got there. So it was like Macklin was so close on two occasions, but the Sharks just could not score. Luke Cunnin had a shorthanded opportunity that looked to be curtailed by a hook, like a hooking penalty that was not called. Later, the Flyers scored a goal, of course, but then that goal was later overturned for being offside. So the first period actually had some very unique sequences. It wasn't this like blowout where Philly was dominating the Sharks. Some chances, some bad puck luck, some just like I said, weird sequences of events where Luke Cunningham gets hooked, no penalty call, no goal, even though he was like in alone. So it seemed pretty fucking obvious, but whatever. Then, like right off of that, just 10 seconds later, the Flyers score a goal, but they were offside doing it. It was just I could understand why it would have been enjoyable to watch. The second period, however, was not enjoyable. A very series of unfortunate events led the Sharks to see their deficit continue to grow. The final score was 4-0, like I said, all in regulation, all against Georgiev in net. So once again, he reaches his 4 quota. These included a power play goal, breaking the Flyers' 16 consecutive power play drought. So they were 0 for their last 16, and of course, Georgiev allowed them to break that streak so graciously because he cares more about their team than the Sharks. No, that's mean, but I'm a little frustrated that he is ever in net instead of Askarov, so forgive me. So there was the power play goal breaking the drought, and then a goober-ish goal that was assisted by a ricochet off of Celebrini that made it 4-0. So that one maybe I don't hold against Georgiev as much, but it was not a good second period. And the third period was, I don't really have much of note here to mention. So the sum of the game against the Flyers, the Sharks had their moments, but again, could not convert, did not have that finishing power, as you put it, Corey, to actually get pucks into the net and get on the scoreboard. And they were actually blanked in the game that was really, it was not out of reach to finish the year. They were in that game at points. They could have been leading that game early on, like I said. So it just wasn't going their way, and they did not have the answers. And like I said, they finished 2024 with 8 consecutive losses. Only one of those was in overtime, so 1 point to show for those games, I believe.
And I don't mean to interrupt again here, but I do want to clarify what I meant by finishing. I don't necessarily just mean like finishing power and the ability to finish goals. I'm talking about, for example, what you were referring to with Vegas, in that Vegas has such a strong third period in that they can finish their games, whether that's offensively or defensively. That's what I mean with the Sharks, is both offensively and defensively, they have a lack of ability to finish their games, especially when they have the lead. They can hold it, they can gain it up through 2 periods, but no matter what, it just seems that once the third period rolls around, they just have a hard time holding on to it and ending the game with the win or 2 points. That's
So
what I mean.
I do agree, and that was the trend in 2024 for sure. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But I do also have to say that I think while I agree with you, I do believe it was both in this game against Philadelphia, where they just couldn't finish on their chances
Yeah.
to finish goals
Yeah.
or finish the game. So I think you're 100% right. I agree, and I understand your original sentiment, and I think it just applies both ways in this case against Philly. Matvey Michkov and Konechny continue to be fun to watch. Those are the only other notes from that game. But like I said, Corey, it's a new year, and Happy New Year again to you, brother, and to everyone
Happy New
listening.
Year.
And the Sharks started at home versus Tampa Bay, who not too long before thrashed them 7-1 when the Sharks were visiting Tampa on their road trip. And this game was another goalie duel. And wouldn't you know it, Corey, Askarov outdued Mr. Vasilevsky himself for the Sharks to get revenge after their beatdown loss in Tampa. And not only was it Askarov, but Celebrini is a human highlight reel. He's just always creating something fantastical and enjoyable to watch. And he went for a spinorama shot attempt that got through to Vasilevsky. He made the save, but kid was like, "Oh, you're the best goalie? Oh no, don't mind me. I'm just gonna go for the spinorama and throw this backhand because I'll get a clean line of sight on the goalie." Like, it was ridiculous. It's not like the Michigan, but I enjoyed it. As I mentioned before, this game, defenseman Marc-Edouard Vlasic made his long-awaited return to the lineup, and he actually provided the primary assist on the first goal that was scored by Corey. Do you know who the first goal against Tampa Bay was scored by?
Probably
Take a guess.
Will Smith.
It was Tyler Toffoli with an amazing toe drag.
I did know because I remember I saw the highlight. It was a wicked little wrister. I remember now.
A wicked wrister, a wicked toe drag. His 15th of the season. So starting the first period off with a lead, just like you were saying, starting games well. Marc-Edouard Vlasic in his return to the lineup with the assist, the primary assist on that goal. Later, it was defenseman. Again, I talked about him a little bit before, but Mario Ferraro scored the game-deciding goal in the second period to put the Sharks up 2-0. It was a bit of a broken play, but Mario jumped into the rush and was left wide open in the slot and hammered it home when he first tried to pass and had a second opportunity to shoot. Tampa was able to respond and make this game 2-1 late in the second, but otherwise Askarov was able to slam the door all throughout the first and third periods to hold off all Lightning chances. He finished with 24 saves on 25 shots, just barely outdueling Vasilevsky himself, who had 23 on 25. So he had one more save, one less goal, and it was the difference. He can say he beat Vasilevsky head-to-head in an absolute goalie duel of a game. There are so many highlights of goalie saves on both sides.
No kidding. No kidding. And I think I've already said all I needed to say about Askarov. This just further proves that point.
Yeah, he continues to amaze, and he robbed Nick Paul at one point. He was like point blank range.
I did see
wide
that
open
highlight.
net, and he just reached out and snatched it out of midair. Like, it was vicious. It should not have been only one goal conceded, and Askarov just said no, and none shall pass. And Yaroslav is truly responsible for breaking the Sharks' losing streak, and he actually, in the process, beat his hero. His hero growing up as a kid was always Andrei Vasilevsky.
Good hero.
And so that was a really cool full circle moment for him. I mean, and this kid is just starting to heat up and is the perfect backstop for the Sharks' young rebuild. He's got the energy. He's just as young and dynamic as the team, and it gives the Sharks potential for long-term success going into the next decade. So that is really, really exciting to see, and I'm glad to see him starting now. And yeah, I agree with you, Corey. We've said it a million times. Give him the starting job for the rest of the season. Put Forgiev on the bench and Tech on LTIR or something. I don't know. Like, let's figure this out.
Oh man, Dom ain't pulling no punches on poor Alex Guerrero.
Well, it's not about him. It's about Askarov deserving the opportunity, and I, like you, want to see it. And I'm saying Georgiev on the bench while Vitek just wallows on IR. So that's, at least he's on the bench. You know what I mean?
I guess.
But the final game to cover this week, unless you would like to add anything in that game versus Tampa, I know I already asked about Askarov, and you've added a lot.
Nothing here. I'll have something at the end here, though, about Celebrini.
Oh, very nice. So our final game to cover is yesterday, as we're recording this, Saturday, the 4th of the new year, with the game at home versus the New Jersey Devils, the second and the final meeting of the two teams this year. And the Sharks took the win 3-2. So they are currently on a 2-game win streak to start 2025.
Hooray!
Don't look now. This might be our year, boys. Knock on wood, say your prayers, do whatever you need to do for your Sharks religion, but let's have a good 2025. We've started off well. And this win actually means the Sharks swept the Devils in both meetings. And this is a playoff caliber team we talk about, and the Sharks swept them on the season 2-0. So not a bad thing to say for a team that is early on in a rebuild. San Jose, however, was unable to convert on 4 power play opportunities, so that is an area of needing some improvement. Important news, William Eklund returned in this game, so not only did we get Vlasic back the game prior, but now having Eklund back for the offense is a big boost. And Corey, this is exciting news for you and Avs Faithful possibly, but Nikolai Kovalenko, he scored his first goal in teal to give the Sharks a 1-0 lead at the first intermission of this game versus the Devils, showed great hands on the play, and finally has a Sharks goal. Tell me, how does that make you feel?
I actually did see this goal, his 5th goal of the year. I watched a majority of this game up until, and I won't spoil it, what ended up being evidently the most exciting part of the game. But yes, I am so thrilled for him. I'm so glad he's getting the opportunity to get, higher minutes, more responsibility. And I'm glad to see that it's paying off for him. Obviously, he's not somebody that'll be looked at for the Calder Trophy. He's a bit more low profile, but I mean, I can truly see him being a solid 3rd line or maybe even 2nd line guy, especially with this Sharks team. So I hope he's able to continue to grow and develop here under you guys.
Yeah, and I do see him. I think he has been his best on the 2nd line, getting that goal on the 2nd line. I believe that is the Granlund line, if you will, because when we have Celebrini, Zetterlund, and Smith all out there together, or Eklund, Smith, and Celebrini out there together, the young line, the kid line, they've sometimes mixed Kovalenko in, they've sometimes mixed Toffoli, and they've really played with the lines a lot, actually, with their top 6, mixing and matching combinations, or even with their top 9. Yeah, he's getting good opportunities, good high-quality minutes, and he's been playing very well in those minutes. He's been a nice boost to the Sharks team. Moving along through this game, not to take away from Nikolai, but the Devils' power play did score in the second period to even it up 1-1. Not a lot to say from the second period. It was just generally balanced, very back and forth, and plenty of action, very fun to watch, but nothing that we haven't already said thus far about great saves, Askarov showing up big, goaltending duel, yada, 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 all the same things. It was a great watch, but nothing of note really to say outside of the ordinary. But the young duo, Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith, playing on a line together with some consistency, with both of them healthy, has been really great. They combined early in the 3rd period to make it 2-1. So going into the 3rd period with a lead has been bad, but going in tied, they were able to take the lead quickly. So maybe this is an answer that the Sharks need for their future. Like, they can't hold the lead, but they can take one in the 3rd. So who knows? That's just something to consider. It was Macklin who ripped his 13th goal of the season home quickly, not giving Markstrom any opportunity to make a save. It was a great pass from Will Smith on the 2-on-1. And it was actually all created by a notable first assist of the season for Colin Graff. He used the boards to clear the puck from the D zone right to Will Smith, who was able to start the odd man rush. And this time, the Devils were able to tie it up and make it 2-2. But unlike other games where the Sharks did not have that finishing power, Corey, Cody Ceci delivered a devastating late game bomb of a shot to take the game with 25 seconds left in regulation, putting the Sharks up 3-2. The Sharks were always in this game and certainly earned the victory with great offense, and Askarov was strong goaltending yet again, saving 28 of 30 for a .933 save percentage. His numbers have been unreal with the consistency that he's put in, especially to start this new year. And it was nice to be on the right side of a late game-winning goal and send the Devils packing without a single point. Like I said, the Sharks might have finished 2024 on an 8-game losing streak, but they have started 2025 2-2. And looking ahead, they actually have a break after these 5 games that I've covered since we last spoke on Christmas. However, Corey, their next game will be played on Tuesday the 7th at home with another shot against the Vegas Golden Knights, and that'll be all we have for you next week in the tank. And then after that, they won't play again until a back-to-back Friday the 10th in Utah, and then at home hosting the Minnesota Wild on the 11th. So some good challenging games coming up here for the Sharks to test if there's any new year, new me success in the long term.
Yeah, the Avalanche's schedule is fucking packed this month. I'm horrified. I'm very scared. So it'll be interesting to see how both of our months respectively go. But my note here is thinking about this Calder Trophy race. It's a very close one, and nobody forget Lane Hudson. He's right in there. But I'm talking about MacLeod Celebrini and Matvei Michkov. Matvei Michkov, to me, seems like the kind of player who just lives for the big moments. He reminds me, if I had to make a comparison, to prime Patrick Kane. Just somebody who delivers in those massive, game-breaking moments. That's where Matvei Michkov is. But if you ask me, who do I feel is the more complete player right now, my answer is MacLeod Celebrini. I mean, MacLeod, Dom, you sent me a great highlight package of MacLeod, and some people in the comments were confused. They're like, well, there's not a lot of goals here. Whoever put this together should be fired. This isn't a highlight package. But obviously, very shallowly, they don't understand that within that highlight package, they're showing MacLeod doing the right things defensively, doing the right things offensively, even if they don't result in a goal. He has such a strong IQ and such a strong work ethic, even though, first of all, his team is losing. He's only 18 years old, but man, he just has the sense for the game the right way. And he, to me, dare I even say it, reminds me of Sidney Crosby, just a complete player.
Honestly, I think that is the most fair and not unreasonable comparison. I've had the same thought, because in that highlights reel, and if you wouldn't mind linking it to this episode for everyone to see, because it is quite incredible testament to all the different things Celebrini brings, not just his goal scoring power. He is checking, he is fighting for pucks, he has the great hockey sense, the awareness, the vision on the ice that you're talking about, Corey, the brain, the mind of the complete mind of a professional, well beyond his level of experience for being 18 and a rookie. It is incredible to witness. He is an artist out there, and the ice is his canvas, but he is able to get physical, and then he is just faster. So when he makes those recognitions, he just wins races. There's one where he's like tripping, falling over, but he dives for the puck, wins it back to himself, sets up a whole passing play that eventually winds up in a Will Smith attempt, and then I believe MacLeod actually gets the goal on that one at the very end when it bounces across the crease to him, or maybe it was Will Smith who got it. Either way, it all started as an effort play where MacLeod won the battle to a puck, poked it to himself, then was diving on the ice to make sure it got into the zone, and got the pass over, and eventually got the goal for his work. It was all together on one play, doing all of the great things. And so, like you said, Corey, he's not one of a kind, but one in a million for sure, maybe 1 in a billion. And if he truly is the next Crosby, the Sharks are going to get those cup wins just like the Penguins did.
So yeah, I am very excited to see how he progresses. But thank you for your time in the tank this week, Dom.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for taking the time to go through the power rankings with me again.
Always. So some news on the injury front. One, I was really curious about Logan Couture. So it looks like what it says here, and forgive me if I mispronounce this, anybody, he has osteitis pubis. So basically he has a deep groin issue. It has to do with his groin, which that is never great. And he re-aggravated the injury, obviously, in 2024, January. So that is tough. But in regards to, I said I wouldn't say anything about Gabriel Landeskog unless there's anything major. I feel this is somewhat major and very interesting, as I think I finally got a little bit more clarity, and I want to offer it to everybody else too. That first of all, obviously everybody knows Gabriel Landeskog was out skating with the team. He was a participant at morning skate, which is always really exciting to see. You love to see him be an active participant in any capacity with the rest of the team. But what I learned via Frank Saravalli is that whenever Landeskog tries to push the knee, he is met with pretty severe swelling in the area, and his knee will swell up, which is why he cannot push himself further. So obviously we all know he's been dealing with the knee issue. So to provide a little bit more clarity, maybe some idea of where he's at, that's the situation as it stands right now.
And that's hard to put a timetable on too.
You can't.
That's one of those things where it's just it will get better with time, and it just depends on the body. All he can do is follow his PT, whatever his trainer's saying, whatever they're doing, follow the right diet and everything to take care of himself off the ice. And it's up to his body to remake those connections, if you will.
Exactly. And we obviously hope for the best. Obviously, if he's out there, that's a positive sign. So everybody just keep your faith. He's still working at it. Well, I forgot to mention after the end of my segment, here are your players of the week, everyone. Number 3 is Devon Taves. 2 games with back-to-back goals, including, the overtime game winner against Buffalo. So that's pretty major. Jonathan Drouin makes his second debut back from injury, immediately has an impact, especially in the game against Buffalo. So there you go. And Mikko Rantanen is your number 1 for this week. Dude is just a fucking machine out there. He is tied for second in points behind, of course, only Nathan MacKinnon, his teammates, who really, I think you could think as Nathan MacKinnon is just the silent number 1 every single week. Nathan MacKinnon just is an unstoppable force. Good luck, everybody else. Well, Dom, are you ready for today's fun fact?
Actually, I do have some news from around the league to share quickly.
If you have something to share, by all means.
I already covered my regular Columbus check-in and the fact that they are just outside the playoffs, but very much in the Eastern hunt right now. But no, the important news is that Alex Ovechkin, is back from injury after being out with a broken leg. Let's not forget, broken bone, right? Ovechkin is back from injury. He has tallied 4 goals in his first 5 games back. He is now only 23 goals away from passing Gretzky's record and is at 872 goals total. Corey, he has 19 goals in 23 games this season.
Russian machine never breaks.
He clearly intends on surpassing the 894 record set by the Great One this season, and can possibly do it in fewer games than the legend did himself when he set the all-time marker. So that is quite the fun fact in its own way. And yeah, it just seems like the Ovechkin chance to beat that record happening this year is much more and more likely. I sent you that tracker, Corey, that we can link maybe in a later episode when it gets closer. But this tracker I found, everyone, I believe it was on NHL.com, like an official one of their story writers. I don't see the name here, but it was updated for each goal by goal, goal number by goal number, 872, 871. It compares what happened when Alex Ovechkin scored versus when Wayne Gretzky scored, how they scored each goal. So it's kind of really cool to see that hockey history, all that hockey history in one place, and just really compare both of their these are both Hall of Famer careers. So this is really, really something cool to see, and I hope we bring to you here at some point in the coming episodes.
Absolutely. And I think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when at this point. And I mean, he'll probably surpass 900 goals as well. And I want to really put into perspective just how insane this number is from a hockey standpoint. So first and foremost, for those who are a little less hockey adept, who are tuning in, learning more about the game with us, if you are, we appreciate you. But if you are a player and you score between 20 and 30 goals in a season, that's a really good season. That is a productive season. That's exactly what you want to see from like your second line centers. Like Would you agree, Dom? 20 to 30 goals, that's a good season. That is a solid season.
Oh, 100%. I mean, 10-goal game, if you're on a fourth line, is a great season in that sense, too.
Exactly. Now, if you're hitting 40 goals, man, you might even be approaching star category. Maybe not superstar. Well, maybe superstar. It depends on how many apples you put up. But, you're fucking amazing if you're scoring four. Now, actually, what am I saying? 40 goals is superstar. 40 goals is fucking insane. If you're putting up 40 goals in a season, that's an insane number. Now, if you put up 50 goals in a season, your name must be Austin Matthews or Nathan MacKinnon of last year, or Mikko Rantanen, who I think is underrecognized for how many goals he puts up. So, I mean, if you're scoring 50 goals, that is near the apex for how many goals a player is scoring a season, because there are only 82 games to score goals in. So putting up 50 is pretty remarkable. Now, to score 1,000 goals in an NHL career, which I believe there might be a player amongst us who will be able to do it. But to score 1,000 goals in your career, Alex Ovechkin's been playing for 20 years. To score 1,000 goals, you would have to score 50 goals every season for 20 years. So for Alex Ovechkin to be even 100 away from that at 900 is astronomically insane. So just wanted to put that into perspective.
And yeah, just remember he's not quite there yet, but he will. He's getting close. He's closing in on the all-time record and on 900. They're not far apart, so it is quite remarkable to see, and something that we are very lucky to get to witness in our time.
Very much so. Well, Dom, that's what's fun. Is today's fun fact doesn't have to do with goals, but it in fact has to do with assists. This one comes straight from my mom, who wanted me to share it. So it's a bit of a specific record. So Dom, do you know the player who holds the all-time assist record playing for a single club? So the most amount of assists with one club. And do you know who the player is and what club it was for?
All-time assists for a single club, so not all-time assists, just
right,
for a
not
single
all-time
club?
assists, just with one club. They played with this club, and they have the most amount of assists all-time playing for one club.
Well, I know Gretzky has the most number of assists, and it's not even close. So I'm gonna say Gretzky with Edmonton, and I'm gonna lock in that answer.
It is not Gretzky with Edmonton. It is the legendary defenseman Raymond Bourque for the Boston Bruins, who had 1,111 assists. Now, as a follow-up, do you know which active player is closing in to surpass that record? And with this one might be a little easier.
Actually, no. Active player who has the most assists
with a single club. Yes.
Oh, is it Sidney Crosby?
It is Sidney Crosby, who is at 1,035 assists as of the time of writing with Penguins. So he is quickly closing in on that all-time assist record with a single club. So
makes sense when he's averaging like 80 to 90 points a season, like the 30 to 40 goals we're talking about. So, that makes for 50 assists a year.
Also, speaking of assists, I'd just like to quickly say Nathan MacKinnon hit his 50th assist in his 39th game this year. Everybody freaked out. Everybody freaked out when Cooch and McDavid got 100 assists last year. MacKinnon is coming. I cannot even imagine a realm that he doesn't get 100 assists this year. He is an apple machine this year, just dishing. It is insane.
Bro's not just a point per game player. He's an assist and then some per game player.
You take away all the goals Nathan MacKinnon has scored, he's still 8th in scoring with the assists alone.
That's wild. Oh my God.
So you don't need to worry about Nathan MacKinnon scoring, just who he's setting up to score, because he will find them and they will finish. So just watch the fuck out, everyone. Well, everybody.
Very nice. Thanks for the fun facts,
man. Yeah, thank you for playing the game. I appreciate it.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
Always. Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Did you know there is a comment section where you can leave your thoughts and questions? If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, leave it below and we'll be happy to try and answer it. There's also a unique poll for you to interact with every episode. The best thing you can do, if you like what we're doing here, is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and share this podcast everywhere you can, whether that's with your mouse or your mouth. I'm Captain Who am I? I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And this is Dom from the tank.
Yeah, probably should slow down every once in a while. That might help me a little bit. Well, check out our new episodes every week, whenever they may come out. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.